Morning folks, it's the San Jacinto Trail Report from up here at San Jacinto Peak. It is Monday the 3rd of March 2025, just after about 10:30 in the morning. It's a bit of a challenge to find a spot out of the wind this morning. Just do a quick pan around from here. We've had a minor snowstorm overnight. Added about 4 inches of fresh powder up here, 3 inches at Wellman Divide, 2 inches at Saddle Junction, about 1 inch at Humber Park, Devil's Slide Trailhead, and we had a dusting of about a half inch in town in Idlewild at about 5,500 feet. That's probably largely melted. As you can see, I'm up above the cloud here, still over the desert divide behind me there, over my shoulder. The marine layer, as it were, the lifted marine layer, still there at about 9,000, 9,500, occasionally whipping over the top of the peak here. Pretty chilly. Air temperature was 11.9. That's what, about minus 10 centigrade, something like that. Wind chill was minus 13.5, if I remember rightly, Fahrenheit. So that's, what's that? About minus 26 centigrade, somewhere in there, minus 27 maybe. So obviously pretty chilly. I'm not going to linger too long on conditions, and the reason for that will become clear pretty quickly. The powder was largely either grauple or micrograins, rounded grains, so it has drifted very heavily. As I say, it's windy. Even now the wind's about 30 miles an hour at the peak. Overnight it was probably 40 to 50 in places. So because of the nature of that snow, and then in combination with the wind, there's been massive drifting. So even though there's only about 4 inches on average in the high country, 3 to 4 inches, it's drifted heavily in the trails. I was able to, I actually just bare booted up Brook Trail all the way from Humber Park via Devil's Slide, Wellman Trail, Peak Trail, and then came up the East Ridge. My tracks from going up to the peak literally were gone by the time I descended from the peak, so that gives an idea of how much it's drifting. And I won't talk about conditions too much, simply because we have what may be the only, but certainly the first potentially major storm of the winter coming in a couple of days' time. Comes in on the afternoon of the 5th, Wednesday, and basically looks like it might snow most of Thursday the 6th. Projection in mid elevations, Idlewild elevation, for example, potentially 4 to 5, maybe even 6 inches. Up in the high country, up here, it's varied, but has been as high as 2 feet. I think we're certainly expecting at least a foot, 18 inches to 20 inches, somewhere in there. So on top of what we've got, which was about 6 or 7 inches remaining from the Valentine's Day storm, plus obviously the 4 inches that we've just had. So we could be looking at something fairly significant. I mean, it's pretty poor still for March, but it would be nice to have 2 or 3 feet of snow on the ground. As of now, it's probably could be crampon conditions if you're not familiar with exactly where the trail is underneath the fresh powder. It's really marginal for snowshoes, because although in theory the depth's good enough, the stuff underneath the fresh powder was actually pretty icy, so there's a fair bit of a lateral movement in snowshoes. You could do snowshoes for the next day or two, and then obviously once we get the storm on the 5th and 6th, then we are definitely looking at snowshoe conditions, and potentially crampon conditions on some of the steeper slopes. Beyond that, there's considerable uncertainty, but there is a significant possibility of yet another storm on the, well, it would start about the 10th. I think that's Monday the 10th. The 10th and 11th looking most likely, but there's a lot of instability in the atmosphere from the 10th for several days after that. But obviously I'm not going to speculate on that right now. So very much a beautiful day up here, and safe hiking everyone.